murder took place in my area around Christmas. 2 of my close friends were arrested for that murder, and then I was also arrested for that murder and 6 other charges. And this was a murder that I didn't commit, but here I found myself now heading to Fulton Prison instead of university that summer.
Yo people, welcome back to the Bread and Butter Podcast. We in the building once again, and we're back again with a special guest. Guys, in the building, we have Kenny Imafidon. We've got Kenny in the building. Come on, bro. Now, one question we always ask our guests when they jump on the podcast is, this might be difficult for you, but go for it, bro. We ask people what their bread and butter is in the most simplest terms. So let the people know how you put food on the table.
Well, that's essentially through selling, research, and consulting with other businesses and organizations. That's easy.
Okay, cool. Do you know what it is? Maybe I'm projecting.
No.
Do you know what I'm projecting?
No, but do you know why? Because when you say bread and butter, I'm thinking of what's the main source of income, right? So again, I run a research company, so we're selling research. Yeah. So that's my main source of income.
But do you know what it is? Yeah, I think that.
Unless I answered the question wrong.
No, you answered it bang on. But I think that I know that that's possible, isn't it? But the business model with it, because I've never done anything like that, in my head it's complex to me. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like the fact that I know it's a business model, but the fact that you like get data and you do research and you sell it for like tens of hundreds of thousands, millions in some case, like it's crazy. But sometimes you just need to sometimes you need to get an insight as to what the business actually can deliver, basically. Yeah. That's what I'm hoping to do for myself in this podcast.
That makes sense.
I don't even know on home training. How are you? Man don't even sit outside, man. How are you? Man don't even welcome a man. Man just goes straight to business.
He's showing off. Like, you always tell him what is your bread and butter. He's showing off.
No, this is my guy though, you know what I'm saying? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good.
I see you on the internet, everywhere.
Yeah, no, active.
How's life though? How do you feel like?
Spiritually I feel very good in terms of, we were talking earlier, like the start of the year for me has just been very strong. Yeah. But more just spiritually I feel like I'm in the right place. Last year was a tough year on many fronts, but this year I feel different energy, different vibes. So yeah, definitely got that spring in my step. I
see you're prioritising physical as well. I saw you always getting your steps in. Yeah, so I pay a lot of attention. You loaded the workout. You have to make it count, bro. Bro, one time I was asking, Antoinette loves Apple Watch and she bought me this one, didn't it? And one time I was like, say if I don't open the workout, it won't count it. Because I played ball for like 2 hours and I forgot to, I thought it would be counting the steps, bro.
I know, you missed that.
The good thing is now, if you walk, it will just start, I see you out for a walk. But the football thing, you'll mess up. But then like, your surname, it's quite a powerful and popular surname in Nigeria, and like, are you all related? Because I see Mafidon a lot. I know obviously you and your brother, but with the others, do you all know each other? Do you like have like a school or a team meet, like a family reunion or something?
No family reunion. No, separate families. Separate families.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Cool. So, bro, we always go back and speak about people's history, right? And I think that you've got a very, very strong history. One that is very, very powerful, I'd say, as well. And that goes back to when you were 18, right? Do you mind breaking down the story for the people that haven't heard the story? Because I don't want to do the story any injustice. And then we're going to speak about your journey off the back of that as well.
Yeah, no worries. So in terms of the story I'm talking about, so essentially this is back in 2010. So a murder took place in my area around Christmas. And then a few days after that, 2 of my close friends were arrested for that murder. And then in 2011, in January and April, another 2 friends. And then May the 7th, 2011, I turned 18. And then I was also arrested for that murder and 6 other charges. And so I literally was in college doing philosophy, politics, and history. And this was a murder that I didn't commit, but here I found myself now heading to Fulton Prison instead of university that summer.
That's crazy. What university were you supposed to be going to?
But I applied for universities in Scotland. I was just trying to get out of the ends.
Get out of the ends, yeah. And you were living in Peckham at the time, isn't it? What did that feel like? I guess that is a crazy feeling. I couldn't even imagine what that felt like. It kind of would feel like your world is caving in, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it just felt like my whole world just turned upside down in that moment, because I never thought that I'm going to find myself in prison. And even if I didn't think I'll be potentially looking at 30 years of my life spent here for something that I didn't do.
even before that though, like, what was it like growing up in Peckham? Like, what did you hang with the
pre-gentrification?
Yeah, like, you understand?
So like growing up, so that's actually one of the things which I do actually talk about in my book, is that, so growing up, I was very much, I lived like 2 lives. So one life was, I was a prefect in school. I left school with 12 GCSEs, 5 that I got at the end of year 10. But at the same time, I was hustling, making money on the streets.
I said at the end of year 10.
That's insane.
Me that was in year 11 struggling to do GCSE. Man already had 5 by year 10.
Yeah. So again, it's like I was always, and I was a prefect in school. So there's one Kenyan, there's another Kenyan. Other side was very much, I was just in the hood. I have to just do, and again, I'm not trying to be the guy that's getting robbed or things are happening. So you got to take care of yourself, boy.
Yeah. But were you really smart? Like, was you naturally smart? Was it you did your homework and...
No, I think I was naturally smart still, but at the same time, I never fully applied myself because at the same time, I'm trying to make this money.
Yeah.
So that's the honest truth. I definitely thought I could have done much better academically, but natural's a hard one as well.
I was going to ask that question.
Natural's hard.
Would you say it was your upbringing, the environment that you were brought up in? Because I guess that you've got a Nigerian background and to be able to do 5 GCSEs in year 10 is kind of bad.
And the crazy thing, my mum didn't actually force me to do any of that. That was just more for myself. I just wanted to achieve. And again, coming back to culture, that's something she always drummed into us from early, that, look, if you get this education, the world is your oyster. And that was it. And also I grew up where my mum can't be coming to the school. So you see all of that stuff that's happening outside school, that needs to stay outside school. And she's not coming to the school for any embarrassment, any nonsense.
Yeah.
So again, that's just something that I guess just kept me on the straight and narrow in school. Like, school is school. You don't play any of them games there.
Did you play sports back in the day?
Yeah, football and rugby.
Would you say that football, when you're growing up in the hood, is kind of like a...
That's necessary, man.
It's a protection, isn't it?
Football's football's so important, 100%. And to be honest, I had a great time. Like, when I think about those years playing football, it does protect you because you're just doing something else.
And
like,
you play football. You need something that you do, basically.
Yeah, 100%. Because idle hands are the devil's playground. When you genuinely got nothing to do, you just get caught up in all sorts. And don't get me wrong, I did get caught up in stuff regardless of the football.
Yeah. But
football could definitely be an intervention, because if people are really good at the sport or they really want to make it, obviously you've got to apply yourself in a different way. You can't get involved in different things. But like you said, I think football is definitely necessary.
And where did the make your money part come from? Because you said you wanted to make money. Where did that mindset come from?
Making money.
Yeah.
I just grew up in the hood, man. People people are shining, people got various stuff, and I know that the jobs they got are not the jobs that I'm seeing other people go to. And that's just it. And so it's the fact of knowing that I can have this.
Yeah.
And so therefore, like, I want this, because I'm not going to get home. My mum's not going to buy me none of these expensive clothes that I want. Even something never about expensive, it's just I want Nike and I need to just making sure I'm fitting in. But my mum can't afford to get me various stuff, so I'm like, I just find ways to get it myself.
Okay. So,
but it's definitely instant gratification for sure.
Lots of that. Definitely instant. So what you mentioned about your studies, it kind of leads us into what I think is super powerful, where you spent 6 months at Felton and you did your A-levels in there. And I want you to tell the story about what I want people to understand, right, is that in this life, you've got scenarios where you can give reasons why you can't, but a testimony, which that's what it is, like yours, should help everybody think that there's always a reason why you can, because you passed your A-levels while in Felton prison. And that's like Felton is famous for, or infamous, should I say, do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. And you managed to pass your A-levels. I'm so one of the people that agree and say that A-levels is harder than uni, bro. Yeah. Uni, I feel like you get bare chances. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Oh yeah, if you do your second year, not that bad. We'll just take 100% of your third year and all these bits and pieces. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Or your first year don't count. All of these things in university. I know they got different rules, but mine was like, if first year and second year flop, third year we could do 100% of third year, and we'll take that as your grades, basically. So you don't really get those chances in A-levels. So talk to us about that and like how you managed to kind of like persevere against all odds, like literally all odds.
Yeah, no, so in terms of when it came to uni, when it came to do my A-levels, I was just like, I need to get this done. I've got this far on the journey. So everyone who I met who was somebody in the prison, I was like, look, if you want to help me do anything, from the psychologist who I met after a few days in to be like, look, this is what I really want to do. Can you help me? To the librarian. Then eventually I met someone in education who was like, look, I help you to do this. My college said no at first. They're like, no, we're not going to facilitate you to go and do these exams. But then they just fought for me. And then literally the same person who was helping me met my mum outside the prison to get like textbooks and different things so I could revise. Now the challenge is during that time when I went to prison, which is around May, I also, this is the time when the lecturers and the teachers will give you, these are the things you should focus on.
Yeah.
So I didn't get none of that. So it was just more like, I just need to read everything and then whatever comes up on the day. But yes, I just pushed through. Like you said, I just didn't make any excuse. Even my legal team at the time were like, you know that you could be potentially getting 30 years and this is what you should be focusing on, your case and not your exams right now. But I'm like, look, I need to get this done because God willing I come out of this situation, I sort of move forward. And I can't go back and do another year, and that was just long.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, of course, well, it's too late now.
We're here. So, I think that story is super powerful, right? And I'm genuinely curious as to what the answer is. Do you sometimes not like talking about it? Or are you happy to talk about it because you know how powerful the story is? Does that make sense?
Do you know what? That's a great question. I would say I don't mind talking about it because based on what you said, I feel like it's a genuine testimony. Yeah. And also it's just a true sign of character and showing people that, look, even in the worst circumstances, you can really still make stuff happen. Yeah. Because to be honest, no one has ever done the A-levels in Feltham until I did it. So it wasn't, one of the key reasons why there was resistance even in the first place, no one's ever asked. And so I've asked and I've just been persistent to be like, look, can you please make this happen? And so I think from a testimony perspective, but also for people to understand, like, genuinely, you just either find a way or an excuse. Yeah. And that's why I feel like it's important to share.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
My goodness. So talk to us what happened next. So you done your A-levels. Talk to us about, or share for us the story. Like, how have you ended up? How have they even knocked on your door? Like, so late on. Like, how did they drop to you?
So to be honest, the whole case was a joint enterprise case.
Yeah.
So essentially, they were trying to find people who were connected to the alleged suspects, and they found me through. They said cell site data, been in communication with other suspects. So that's why they came knocking on my door and why they charged me. So it had nothing to do with what people would call as hard evidence. So someone your blood was on the scene, CCTV, witness testimony. Nothing to do with that, all just to do with phone communication.
And so when you know you're innocent, I always think about this, like, when you know you're innocent, a man knock on the door and say, come with me. What do you think? Because we feel like we're in this, I know my rights, when the law says, we think you've done something, you're going to prison, and then you're sitting in prison knowing you've done nothing, like, how did that make you actually feel? Like, did you actually feel like, right, actually, we're all just pawns here. Like, I'm not actually in control of my life.
You know, that's the first time where I felt like I lost control. So before going to prison, I would say I was a very self-sufficient person. And even just in terms of my own walk with Christ, like Christ was very much the passenger, but I've got the wheel. Yeah. And if I'm in trouble, I'm like, okay, take over now. And I feel like prison was the first time where I genuinely felt that sense of hopelessness, because now I'm here in this situation and there is nothing I can genuinely do about it apart from pray and hope that by the time this gets to trial, I'm acquitted. But then I also know that there's no guarantee that you're going to be acquitted either. And also there's 5 of you on this case, so you just never know. So even when you talked about what are you feeling, you go through the whirlwind of emotions, because on one level you're very angry because you're thinking like, why am I in this situation? I should be doing my A-levels, going to uni. Then on another level you're also thinking like, hey God, what's going on here? Like, how did I now land in this? Like, there's so much other things that I've done. God should have sent me, if I'm going to go to jail, let it be for something else. So again, there's all these things you go through. Yeah. But then at the same time, I just was focused on just really building my relationship with Christ in that moment. Because also I feel like when you get so broken, because now you're in a situation where there's genuinely nothing you can do. Yeah. I was genuinely at the same time looking at, look, what am I going to do here? And so when you talk about emotions, there's so many emotions that you feel during that time that it's even hard to say there's a dominant emotion. Because you also still have happiness, right? And gratefulness because, look, I'm still alive. Right? So there's...
Not a lot of people will be able to see it that way, though.
No, of course, because at the end of the day, in the places that we grew up in, like, some people are genuinely not here on this earth. So again, it's also just look, some people have it worse, and it's hard to see when you're going through stuff
Mm.
that people have it worse. So you feel like, is it just me that's being punished in this moment? But I feel like I learned a lot of perspective during my time in prison, and just the value also of freedom. Like, it's hard. You two will never know freedom like I know it.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's
Yeah.
never been taken away from you.
Yeah.
So you can think about it and you can imagine,
Yeah.
but to genuinely to be like, look, you're going to be in this room that we're in now 23 hours of the day, and you're only going to come out for 15 minutes, and during that time you've got a shower, if you shower, because you know certain men don't shower, you're going to play pool, you have to make your phone call all within that 50 minutes. That's it for the whole day.
And you're now in prison with real criminals that have done
That's crazy.
real things. Do you feel like the system let you down? Like, do you feel like this should be like this shouldn't be allowed to happen, or do you see it from the other point of view of somebody's been killed, so they've got to use any means to try and get justice?
No, of course, because that is the case, right? Someone has lost their life, and so again, they're gonna do whatever it takes to find the people who've done it. So that side you get, but I think it's more to do with the fact of even as you go through it. Because one of the questions people ask me is, after you're acquitted, what happened? Did you hear from anyone? Did you get an apology? And of course, the answer is no. Because once you're acquitted, that's it. Like, just go and live your life. No therapy, no counselling, no apology. You just gotta leave and do what you gotta do.
It's crazy. That's crazy, bro. Even hearing like obviously I know Kenny today, innit? But even like hearing the language that even hearing you say during my time in prison, it feels fake to me even hearing it.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually mad that you did that time in prison. But I can imagine, I think it's good to hear what you said, because you've got a different perspective on just freedom as a whole. So I can imagine, like, since that day that you were acquitted, like, just a whole heap of gratitude just follows you everywhere.
Yeah, big time, yeah, because I genuinely feel like I got a second chance at life, right? Because I have two friends on that case. One's got 30 years, so another one's got 26 years. So they've both been in for 14 years. So even something which I consider as a nightmare to go through, that still continues. And even when I meet both of them and still talk to them, to even see them still be mentally strong and whatever, then for people like me, it's like, what's my excuse? Because if you can be going through that day in, day out, that's what can I really say? And even what you mentioned about gratitude, it's like, well, what could be worse? So any day, whatever happens, whether it's in business, personal life, I'm like, look, I'm here, isn't it? I'm free, and I've still got various luxuries that most people will never have. So again, I just need to be grateful. And that's even like when I journal every day, I always just start with the things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And that for me is definitely, just life, family, community. I mean, waking up in a nice, comfortable bed. I mean, very nice mattress, pillows. It's not a prison bed, it's not a hospital bed. Just gotta be grateful, isn't it? Move forward.
But like, what is prison like? Because you know, like, man watch them old school. What's that? Porridge. You know them old school TV stuff, like UK prisons. Like, you can imagine it. You see stuff in movies and stuff like that. And obviously, you know, there's different prisons. Like, when I see Nigerian prison, I'm like, oh Lord, that's a whole nother level. Like, but when you look at prison and stuff like that, what is the reality? Like, are people actually just mad in there? Like, or is everyone's just doing their thing, and as long as you don't trouble no one troubles you?
It depends, because different prisons have different cultures.
Yeah.
So you go to some prisons and the people there are very relaxed. Everyone just, as you said, as long as you mind your own business, you're not causing trouble. No one causes you trouble. Where there's certain prisons where you go, people are probably going to check you. You're going to have to be ready to fight or do whatever. But again, it's also about the age range of the people we're talking about, right? In younger prisons, there tends to be much more violence, much more activity. People are much older. They're just trying to ride their sentence here, just pass the time. They're not trying to get extra days.
Yeah, understood.
And for a lot of those people that end up doing some of the stuff that you're even thinking about, they got short sentences. So for some of them, it's like, 2 years, I go crazy, but obviously I'm still going to be out in 2 years.
Yeah.
But again, when you're meeting people that got 15 years, 20 years, 30, particularly when I meet some of the young guys, because I was in Feltham like last year, what do you say to someone who's like 17 and now has 19 years?
I wouldn't know what to say, bro. I wouldn't know what to say, bro. Like, time is like, for me, time is like, just like sand going through your fingers, innit? And it's kind of like, to even hear, like, you're going to be here for 19 years, for me, it's a crazy concept. Yeah. So it's like, I wouldn't even know what to say to them.
Okay, and that's the thing. And when they ask you, like, how do I make the most of this time?
Yeah.
So again, I mean, that's what people got to understand. There's a lot of people that are going through. You talked about earlier that emotions. They're going through all of that, and they have no one to help them channel it.
Yeah.
And also, you're young. You've never lived life. You haven't.
Yeah, you haven't lived,
You haven't
literally.
lived,
Yeah, you haven't lived.
You probably never had a pay slip. You don't know what a P60 is. You just don't know anything. You never had a proper job. These are young people.
Yeah.
So again, so prison it depends where you are.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it can be violent, it cannot be. It just depends, isn't it? And it's also about what you're also doing yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
To bring trouble to yourself or what area you're from. If people got problems with those areas, but
Yeah.
I guess when I went to prison, for me, I was already I felt like I could defend myself. I had other guys that also knew from my area in the jail as well.
Pecco's reputation was very strong.
Indeed.
Well, I've got cousins in Northwest, they knew, bro. Pecco's ringing bells. Them times there, ringing bells, innit?
So again, I didn't have all those fears thinking about, my safety, whatever. Like, because I defend myself, isn't it? So again, wasn't really a problem. Like fearing for my safety or, voluntarily staying in my cell all day, like none of that.
Yeah.
So again, it depends, isn't it? Each to their own.
Let's talk about the acquittal, right? Because for you and your family, the emotions must have been crazy. How did you find out, and what did it feel like?
And I found out, so in terms of the acquittal, so halfway during the trial, this is 4 weeks in, my legal team applied for essentially half-time submissal. So again, that just means that to say that I had no case to answer.
Yeah.
There's all the legal stuff, we don't have to worry about that. But it just basically means that there's no case, and if the judge agrees, then you can go home. And so I remember my legal team doing that, and then I got back to the prison that day or that evening, and I just called my mum, like, look, mum, something tells me that I'm coming home tomorrow, please pray for me.
Wow.
And literally the next day, I just packed all my stuff, wrote a note to say, look, give my stuff to these guys, but then I just took my personal stuff. And then, obviously, in the morning, I'll never forget waking up, and some other guys see me with my stuff like packed. They're thinking, are you waiting for the jury? Or because unless you're waiting for the jury or you're moving prison, you have no reason to pack your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, even though you don't have much stuff, because obviously you're in the cell, but it's still long to pack.
Yeah.
So, but I just like to him, look, don't worry about that. Like, don't watch nothing. And then throughout that day, I was just thinking to myself, look, because I felt like God just told me, look, when you're with your friends today, make sure you just pray in one group. And I just thought, you know what? I can do that. But I've never prayed with these guys. I prayed individually, but not as a group. So even as we even got to the Old Bailey court, I've still not prayed. We're in the holding cell, so like downstairs. And I'm just like, something just keeps prompting me, look, pray with these guys. And I'm just like, do you know what, let me just pray. So I was like, yeah, guys, let's just pray. But so I've never done that before. You know what I mean? But something just really told me, look, remember, this is 4 weeks. I've not prayed to them at all there, but something just like to me, just pray. So I'm like, cool, let me pray. So I just prayed as a group, and then the court ushers come downstairs, let's say 30 seconds after, to be like, look, the judge wants to see you, look. So remember, at this point, what some of us are going to find out whether or not we're going to be acquitted today or whether we're going to continue on trial. So it's very tense in that sense. So we're going up the stairs now to the court. And then as we're going up the stairs, halfway up the stairs, the court ushers basically like to us, oh, sorry, you have to go back to your holding cell. And we're like, go back for what? Because every time the judge calls you, you're going to the court. Like, it doesn't waste your time in any way. So I'm like, this is strange. Now you got to remember, this is like a minute or so after this prayer that I'm telling you a lot about. So I'm just thinking, this is crazy, this is nuts. So in my head, I'm like, wow, okay. So we've gone back to the holding cell, everyone's just thinking like, oh, what's happened? The judge has never asked for more time. I'm like, okay, this is crazy. So then eventually he calls us back up, we go upstairs, then he just goes through each of the defendants, and then he gets to me, then essentially he's like, look, you got no case to answer, then basically asked the jury to acquit me of all 7 charges there and then.
That is crazy.
Wow.
That is crazy.
That's the real of it. So again, it's just having that prompting, just literally hearing the Holy Spirit say, look, you need to, when you're with these guys, pray.
So what was your faith like before this happened? Then did it grow while it happened, and then obviously? Yeah,
so as I mentioned before, so before going to jail, it was very much, church was not optional. You go to church.
Yeah.
Even if my mum didn't go to church, you must go. So it's one of those things where, like, I'm aware of, okay, look, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, but there's no, in many ways you can argue that's like second-hand faith, because
Yeah.
it's not a personal
Relationship.
relationship and conviction in that
Yeah.
way. But I would say like through Joe is when I really began to start studying and also become childlike. So even though I felt like, I knew stories and I know about this and that, I'm not actually inquiring from a childlike place about. So I'm also going to Bible study. Remember, I'm also in Bible study with some of the man them. So this is, even that was just even weird at the time. Like you're all, and then also you're also learning how to like pray for yourself, because a lot of time, even like prayer, you actually have to know how to pray. If not, you're just. And don't get me wrong, I believe yes, you can just talk to God as you're talking, but again, just learn how to pray and be confident to even do that in a big group. And I would say that going through that, and then since then, a lot of my faith has matured, because obviously it's one thing to be in prison, it's another thing to be outside with all the temptation, all the challenges, and having to deal with different people. But again, it's helped me to transform in terms of understanding who do I want to be, and also know about the standard in relation to how I want to live my life. So a big thing for me was more about burning the boat in relation to the old me, and saying, look, this is just how I have to live out my life if I'm going to go on this journey. I don't know where it's going to take me, but I know, and particularly like, even those stories I'm sharing with you, look, these are stories that were never public until I actually wrote my book. But I knew to myself that this God we're talking about, 1000% real. There's no way I can, you can't shrug that voice in and saying that you need to do this. I called my mum, wake up in the morning, right? So everything in faith. Nobody packs their bags in jail, trust me, unless you know today I'm moving and you're waiting. But Satan just told me, and I was the only one out of my co-defendants that even packed that day as well.
Wow.
So some of us said the day before, look, we're going to pack. But that day, I just followed through. So for me, this whole God thing is Jesus. I don't need any more.
Any convincing.
But
joy is, the Bible says that as well. Like it says that He's gonna show you His power, so it's undeniable that it was Him. And that for you, you're in a crazy scenario, and you stepped in faith, packed your bag, listened, and prayed before, and then within a minute, you've been told to go back to the holding cell, which is insane. Let's talk about when you come out of prison. So you initially did your A-levels so you can go to university. Did you still go to university?
Yes, I went to university after. So the crazy thing, so when I did come out of jail, so for me, come out of court, essentially, I had one of those feelings of, it was the most bittersweet moment ever in my life. And so I'm going to answer your question, but I mention this because as much as I was so happy to be free, it's the feeling of all the other people that I'm going through this with are still on trial. So that genuine sense of joy and that this is over was still not there.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited and happy for myself and grateful, but I'm also like, okay, these guys are still going through it. And as I mentioned before, then one of them gets sentenced, and like, damn, or gets found guilty, then gets sentenced to 30 years, and you're like, wow. And then another friend in the retrial, 26 years. And so again, so even when you're talking about, that's the context that's going on, but whilst that's going on, I'm also trying to rebuild my life. So one of the things which I was praying about in jail, and I remember like the minister in the prison telling me about, look, just pray to God for creative ideas. And I thought it was kind of strange, but I decided to pray to God for creative ideas. And even when I got out, I was still praying. And one of the things that came to my mind was, write a report about some of the issues that are affecting areas like yours. And I thought, cool, let me go and do this report. But long story short, so if you got to imagine, I came out November the 9th, 2011, November the 12th, 2012, I was launching the Kenny report in the House of Commons.
Crazy.
So, and the same report, because it's so, and even it's funny, I was at a dinner yesterday and someone's like, wait, at that age, why would you think of something like that to do, as in to do this research paper? Again, something that no young person's ever done in the UK.
Yeah.
And I got the backing of one of the country's top criminologists to write this piece. Because at first, it was so funny, my mentor introduced me to this criminologist, Professor John Pitts.
Where did you get your mentor from?
Before I went to jail. So before I went to jail, I had work experience in City Hall, House of Commons, and Southwark Council.
Wow.
And so I got my mentor through Southwark Council.
Did you ever have any hesitation reaching back out to them after you'd been to prison, even though you were acquitted and found innocent?
No, so with Jonathan, I felt like, so his name's Jonathan, we had a very good relationship, and even whilst I was in prison, I spoke to him a couple of times. So by the time I got out, I was like to him, look, this is the idea I've got. Then he brought me to this professor's house.
Crazy.
And then, you know, it's one of the houses you go into, you see a man with like a big piano there for no reason. You're like, oh, this is serious. I ain't seen none of this where the hood were. I was like, cool. A very nice house. So then he was like to me, oh yeah, this idea sounds great. You should make it like a long article. I'm thinking, nah, I'm trying to do a report like what you lot do. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
And then I had to literally, my mentor left, I stayed because I'm like, nah, we need to actually really talk about this idea.
Yeah.
So I eventually got to convince him that, look, I want to do this report. And I showed him, look, here is the full idea. Then he was like, actually, I hope you to do it. I remember, I've never wrote a report ever. I'm just like 18.
Yeah. When you say that your mentor left you, your mentor left the house.
He left the house, left the house.
And how old are you at this point?
18.
It's crazy.
And then he was like, do you want to go? I said, nah, I need to, because I'm not doing the article.
Can I ask something? Before you went to, it sounds like what you were doing at that point, takes a lot of maturity. I don't know many 18-year-olds there. Their mentor, who's a full-blown, like, older adult, leaving them in someone who they've been introduced house, and you're staying. It's not even like you're staying to get signed to a football club, bro. Like, what we're interested in at that age. You're staying to make sure that my man lets you write the report. Do you feel like you had that kind of like maturity mentality before prison, or do you feel like it was built up within your resilience in prison, or were you kind of like that before? Or you say it's a bit of both?
I said before because
of what you studied.
Because of what I said. But then also, even in those work experience opportunities I told you about, I got them off my own back.
Yeah.
So even I worked with the leader of the Labour Party at the time. Right from the hood, no one knows. But again, I worked with someone who knew someone who was like, look, let this young guy work in your office. And I just emailed so much people to say, look, I want to get work experience. I want to shadow, I want to understand how this world you're in works. I didn't care about if people replied to me or not. Even till now, 2025, people ain't replied. But it's okay. But again, I just needed one person to say yes.
Yeah.
And once that woman that said yes, she just resigned not too long ago as a deputy mayor and for transport. But at the time, I said, even the email I sent her was embarrassingly poorly worded, but she responded and gave me that opportunity. And once she gave me an opportunity, I made the most of it.
Yeah.
Then she's the one that introduced me to the leader of the Labour Party, also introduced me to one of the directors in Southwark. That was it. So one person just plugged me into these different spaces.
Yeah.
And then whilst shadowing the director in Southwark Council, that's how I met my mentor, Jonathan, that I mentioned about earlier, because he was reporting, because she was his direct report.
Yeah.
And I was in that meeting thinking, this is proper interesting.
Yeah.
And also he wrote a report himself. So again, talking about mentors and exposure. So I saw a report that he wrote that he then shared with the Home Office. And I saw how the Home Secretary, Theresa May at the time, and other people responded to the research that he did. And I thought like I can do something like this.
Sick.
And
No
so again,
limits.
no limits. And then that was it. And so, as you got to imagine, remember I went to Joe in May 2011, but a month before he brought me to a presentation with Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary at the time, and other ministers to talk about his research. And at the time, when I was going to Home Office, I was thinking, this is funny, because obviously, you know, in our culture, Home Office.
Home Office being
Right home. Like,
that's funny, but that's the kind of, and he just threw me in the deep end. It's like, yeah, I didn't tell you on purpose who you're going to be presenting to. So again, it's that whole, it's why mentors are so important. You see, like exposure.
Yes.
So once I saw, okay, he did this, and I'm like, I think I can do this. And to be honest, a lot of my career, just because of that exposure, got me into a whole different space where, like, even now, the research that we do is way more advanced than even what he did back then.
Crazy.
bro, I'm just quiet. Normally I'm not even this quiet, bro, but I got chills, bro. Like, it's like, like, I know, obviously, speaking to you, seeing you online, your brother, everything, like, you're so humble, bro. But for me, like, this is like, I don't know, this is like meeting Obama. Do you know what I mean? Like, you are inspirational, bro.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, when we talk about bread and butter, yeah, we can talk about millionaires and da-da-da-da. We're talking about the maddest adversity and you still finding a way, and then you still inspiring a whole generation to say, like, actually, I want to do a report to show why these things happen and how we can try and improve it. And I want to, like, and man, imagine you gone to a big man's house and I said, listen, just write an article. Say, listen, I'm going to stay in your house until we write a report.
Yeah.
How much, man, will have that level of confidence.
Yeah.
Like, just that self-belief. Like, if more of us, like, sometimes I feel like we're looking for someone to give us a job or someone to, but the reality is that we need someone to help us understand the belief of who we are and who God called us to be on this planet.
Yeah.
And I feel like you walking in that confidence is why you're so successful. People might feel like, oh, you're really intelligent and all, but even if you are intelligent, even if you have, connections, whatever, if you don't have the confidence of who you are and how you belong and the footsteps you're supposed to be in, you can't achieve that bread and butter. You can't make that money in that way. You can't make that impact. And like, for me as someone, like, just hearing your story, that obviously I've read little bits, seen stuff on social media, but just hearing it play out and hearing your coolness and the fact that, at that time, you really drew closer to God. Some people would do the opposite.
Yeah,
Some people would say, right, you know what? Where's God now? I ain't even done nothing. Look what's happened.
Right.
Like, do you understand? And just be negative
Yeah.
and find every reason to blame. And people say you have every right to because you've been done wrong. But you chose a different path. You can say, right, you know what? While I'm here, if I'm going to have to be here, I can't stop myself from being here. But while I'm here, I'm going to make sure I get my A-levels. Like Tyler said, before you come, he said that's the most Nigerian thing he's ever heard in his life.
Right, it's the most Nigerian thing I've ever heard in my life. But he felt in prison and got A-levels. I passed him. Bro, that's like, bro, it's crazy. So yeah, bro, like Iman said, like, against all odds. But yeah, I'm honestly like inspired. Even at the beginning of the journey, like you being super sharp in school and then coming out and still continuing that passion, linking up with the mentors. Because like I mentioned, some people might have been shook to link up with the mentors. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And you effectively drilling down on what you studied and making sure that you, A, utilize what you study, and B, you're making sure that you make an impact. And I think, see, like Iman mentioned, not settling for less. Like, some people will just be wowed by the piano. So when a man says that, yeah, just let's do an article, they might say, oh yeah, article do, bro. You're like, no, I want to do the report thing. Do you know what I'm trying to say?